they got to help themselves in a way, but we can show people the path, so they have that willingness of going into a treatment center and completing that 30 days. What I found, especially being in that cycle, is, you go into treatment for 30 days, and a lot of times in the Philadelphia area, you come off of Kensington Ave, you go into a treatment center, they pump you up with medicine while you're in there. At the end of your stay, they hand you, a list of meetings and a list of recovery houses, and they say good luck.
There's no actual accountability afterwards.
No
follow up.
No, and we see that, and that's why we get. So what we do on top of everything we do is that we give mentorship with people that are coming out. Because there's a lot of foundations out there that do help people pay rent. But it's but they like to just throw money at them. For us, it's we want to bring them into the family. We want to make them part of family, because what I've learned with being in recovery, and now my whole life revolves around recovery, and and having an education now on what drug addiction is. The opposite of addiction is connection. And the best way to get connection is through community. So it's I know through my trials and tribulations why I've been clean and sober over a little over 2 years, is that, when I'm going through things, is that I got a whole big support system around me, and it is out there for everyone.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people who aren't involved, one thing I usually say is, some people don't really, it's not that they don't care, but they don't pay attention because it doesn't directly affect them. And because people don't know stuff, that you've been through, or that people struggling with addiction go through, they think that, oh, you're addicted, you're going to get treatment and you're no longer going to be addicted. But addiction, or, fighting addiction and in recovery is a constant thing. It's not, oh, I met this goal and I'm good now. Yeah. It's something people struggle with every single day.
100%, definitely. And it is so, I know with my generation, I see we've seen, because I grew up between Kensington and Tacony, and, and I seen the drugs, I was around it, but I was never really educated on addiction. I knew what addiction was. I knew that there was guys that were out there that were robbing, stealing, hurting their families in order to maintain their habit. But I didn't understand. I was never educated on why they do it. And that's something that we, moving forward and as we grow, that's something we want to do, because we see our younger generation in our family, especially with losing my sister and my nieces and nephews, to educate them on why. Because a lot of us, and because I'm also a child of an addict, so it's and I remember used to thinking that my father loved drugs more than he loved me, so then I thought that I wasn't lovable. And those are things that are happening. I mean, especially
and you don't
now.
catch on to those things until you get older.
No, yeah.
Right.
That's why you seek different outlets in those things. And I'm sure when you're younger, you think to yourself, oh, I'm not gonna get addicted. I see other people do it, but that's not me. I'm not gonna do that. And then you find yourself going down a deep, dark path.
Definitely. And it is, and it's all finding connection. Whether that connection's love, whether that connection is something bigger than yourself, as in a group of people, having meaning in life and all that, and it's a. I wish I can, through osmosis, just push it on everybody and have them get what I've gotten from it. Yeah. But, that's not really how it works, but it does work,
One thing that blows my mind, I grew up basically near Somerset and Fair Hill, right around Kensington. I went to school at Visitation BVM, grade school. And I remember the area was always bad, but now I see they're putting up $300,000 condos.
Yeah. I know.
And just the other day, my father picked me up from the airport with my sisters, and we're driving down because my dad still lives around the way. And we're driving down there, and I see this chick on the car. She's just out of it, on top of a car, right in front of those brand new $300,000 condos. And it's just I don't know how the funds work or how all that, the complexities of.
Right. I think that situation alone is so much bigger than us. I think it's, our city needs to focus on better quality treatment. They need to focus on housing. They need to focus on, there are services out there, but the services are so limited, and the treatment is not really there. So again, like Bill says, when you're discharged, you get that 30 days, you start to feel good. You don't have any resources when you're discharged. And, there's not a lot of funding out there for them to get into even shelters, even a bed to lay their head on at night. So they give up because, okay, I'm there. I got my 30 days. I got a little healthy. And then I leave, and guess what? I don't have food. I don't have a bed to lay on. I don't have an ability to get to my clinic or ability to get to my next meal. So it becomes a cycle. And unfortunately, the area of Kensington is where the cycle continues because it's very accessible for them to live there. There's areas that it's accessible, and almost accept it for people to live on the street. It's accepted for, there's dealers that are openly dealing. And it's, that area has become, always has been for drugs, but right now it's just a different world. That's the only thing I can say. I mean, no other part of the world that I know of it's just they live by their own rules.
Yeah, and people think, with the war on drugs, locking people up is going to solve that, or
no.
They want to punish people for seeking a substance to make them not feel the way they feel. When that's not the root of the problem.
They need to address it as if it's a medical issue.
Right.
It is definitely a medical issue.
And a lot of people think addiction is a choice, which blows my mind.
What's crazy is if you look at it, it is looked at as a disease. So it's looked at as a disease. So what we do is, and that's why the stigma holds on to it, is because now if you're stricken with this lifelong disease, the only way that how they're going to control it is by putting you in jail. So then it's outcasting the addict and the alcoholic and telling them that they're that's what they deserve. You deserve to be locked up. Mm-hmm. And you take people that are genuinely good people that have a disease, and you take them and you start putting them in atmospheres such as like jail and institutions, and all of a sudden, as human beings, we adapt to our surroundings.
Exactly, they become a product of their environment.
Yeah, so you're turning them into criminals. You're turning them into people that they weren't. And through the guilt, shame, and remorse of being an addict, it's harder to get back up. Like Denise was saying, like you go into a treatment center here, and I've been there, and you get out and you go to recovery houses here, and they say, okay, well, you can wait until you start working and start paying us, but you're going to owe us that money, and and you got to pay within a month, and you just spent 10 years on the streets homeless, you don't even know how to do anything, and then you get out, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you got to start working, and then as soon as you start working, you got to start paying us, and now you owe us $2,500.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well,
it's almost like a sensory overload. You're coming out.
Exactly.
You're coming out. You're already trying to deal with your recovery, and then life's just life itself is just throwing all these things at you at once, and
that's one of the things that we talked a lot about was when you get out and you already have to. There's intake fees. Well, if you have no family, forget it. How are they going to come up with intake fees? And then so they'll let you go behind on rent for 30 days. And then unfortunately, in where some of these recovery houses is, there are no employment abilities that are going to make them a decent salary so they can afford their rent, their, food, everything that they need. And it becomes an endless, overwhelming cycle that they just choose to walk away from because they can't handle it. They don't have the tools to handle. And that's a lot what we want to do. We want to be able to help them get beyond that, get themselves to work on themselves, figure a life out, get a job that is, worth the job, worth making them feel good about themselves, and then eventually get, into a society that, you know, they can actually function. They don't have to be overwhelmed. And the mentor is a big thing too, because a mentor is a little bit different than a sponsor. A mentor is basically like a big sister, you know, kind of like, hey, I can call, you can complain about us, you can complain about your whatever, and just kind of vent. And, you know, so, you know, these are all the things that we want to kind of work on. And we understand it's a small piece, but it's what we have to offer. You know, what Bill was saying, his background was a little bit, we grew up in the same family, cousins, you know, but my family life, I grew up with two parents. They bickered, but they were good parents, working class parents. I knew I had uncles that were alcoholics. I still to this day don't remember I had an uncle that was on heroin. He was apparently at my house. I think we were blinded to it. It wasn't talked about. It was just, you know, oh, he's tired, whatever. So it wasn't educated. And, you know, a lot of it was my mom protecting us. So we just didn't know. So I really didn't have any immediate involvement in this until my daughter became an addict. And then, you know, you look at it many ways. As a parent, your first response is, what did I do wrong? Oh my God, I can't believe I did this to my kid. What did I do wrong? She was a preemie, maybe I did something wrong. You know, you go through this guilt of just being a parent. And then I, through my own recovery, through my own therapy, I realized I didn't do anything wrong. And, you know, I have almost done a 360. Now I'm there to support my child, but I don't carry the guilt of it as much. I mean, you know, there's days, but I definitely feel as though my job is to educate, become educated, understand, be down there on the streets to see, you know, what it is that is appealing to her. You know, she's spent time down there as well, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, you know, my kid went to college, and, you know, so she's well educated. She's actually extremely intelligent. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has something to do with the disease of addiction. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I sent her through private school, or that I gave her every opportunity, that my child went on amazing vacations. You know, it has nothing to do with how I worked my butt off. I was a single mom in the beginning. I mean, I went to college at night while I put her to bed, you know, like, so I worked really hard, and then I felt guilty when I was a single mom. What the hell did I do? You know?
And like Bill said, you were a son of an addict, or you are a son of an addict, and for people to not believe or continue to debate that addiction is not a disease.
Oh yeah.
Like they've scientifically proven like it can be a generational thing, whether it's drinking, whatever your addiction or substance is.
Bill's mom, Kathy, and I talk about it often. There are things now that I've become educated with that I can pick up on children, seeing behaviors. Looking back, I realized that my daughter had OCD. She was obsessive about anything she did. She played softball. She was amazing. She played hockey. She was amazing. She was obsessed with certain things that kids shouldn't have been obsessed with, weather, things like that. So she had behaviors, and I didn't know these behaviors. You know, so
this is new to me too. I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, these are just things that we've discussed. I don't know the science behind it, but observation. There is behaviors in certain children. You can look at my one daughter that had these behaviors versus my other daughter that is completely the opposite.
They get like fixated on something.
Yeah, I mean, OCD is a big piece of it. Depression is a big piece of it. But all of these things are not addressed as young children. They start to become addressed when they get older, and at that point, they've already self-medicated. So the addiction has started, and they've figured it out. And then once you are an addict and you're seeking treatment, they don't necessarily want to give them a diagnosis until they're, a year or two clean?
Yeah, a year to 18 months.
Yeah. So, so after they get clean, they have to sort of kind of work the program and rely on the program for that 18 months in order to treat the underlying issue that actually potentially created the addiction. So it's a very hard cycle. It's like no other disease. It's like no other. It's not treated like this other diseases. Yeah. There's education, and it's difficult because my biggest thing is I want to educate. You do have people they don't necessarily want their grade school kids to have this education because they feel as